Since I was in high school, and I'm sure I've said this, and I'm sure even more I'll say it again, but since I was in high school, my favorite thing to do with my free time, my favorite pastime, is fishing. It always has been. And I have had the pleasure of fishing in probably close to, if not at least half of the states in this country for almost every freshwater fish that swims here, and many species in saltwater. I really enjoy fishing. Of all of those things that I've fished for, my top three, one of my top three, without any question, is northern pike. I just enjoy. That's an angry fish. It's a fish that just takes being caught very seriously, and it's a lot of fun. Now, for me, my love of northern pike began 30 years before I ever caught one. More than that. When I was in high school in Oregon, I used to get Outdoor Life and Field and Stream, and on the cover of one of those was this really big, tubular-looking fish with all of these gnarly teeth, and they called it a northern pike, and I'd never seen anything like that. We don't have those in the Northwest. And I said to myself, that's a bucket list thing for me. I'm going to catch one of those someday. And it was 5 or 6 years ago in May that my son and I, living in Nebraska, took a mini vacation to the Valentine Refuge Lakes, and I finally caught my first pike. We caught several there that weekend, but my favorite of all of them, and several large bass to sweeten the pot, but my favorite pike out of that entire trip was the last pike I caught. My son and I fish out of kayaks, and his is a recreational kayak, but mine's a tournament kayak. And I have just about everything hanging off that thing that you might find on a bass boat, except for a motor, and including a sonar, a fish finder. Now, coming off the left side of my kayak is a metal arm that goes into the water that holds the transducer for that sonar, for that fish finder. And I caught this pike, and he was only about 30 inches. He wasn't huge by pike standards. And when he got to the boat, he clamped down on that metal arm of that transducer and bit down for all it was worth. And I unhooked it. I was fishing with a spinner bait, and I unhooked it, and I tried to pry those jaws off of that metal arm, and it was not happening. That thing stayed bit down on that metal arm, and just for all it was worth, it was not letting go. So I started fishing. I caught 2 or 3 big bass, and it stayed there. It stayed there for at least 20 minutes, biting down on that metal arm, when it could have simply just opened its mouth and been unbound and swam away. But it didn't want to let go of what it knew, what it thought might save it. What's that have to do with anything that we might study in the Bible? Well, if you remember that fish, I think we'll get back to it. Let's pray.